Jauan Jennings back at practice. Dominick Puni back at practice. Everybody was into the pool today at 49ers practice at the perfect time. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast, part of the Pro Football Insiders. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Vish Kumar. And Vish, it's game week.
It's here, Rob. This is what we've been waiting for. This is what we battled through the summer for. We're finally back.
Oh, God, it feels so good. We have actual football games to preview and talk about. It's going to be fantastic, but we have to get to the news of the day first. Before we talk about Seattle, before we talk about anything, Vish, 49ers had a practice today, and guess who decided to show up? Old number 15 on the same day that Kendrick Bourne is strolling into town for a workout, for a visit, for whatever you want to call it. Here comes Jauan Jennings back for the Niners.
Yeah, it's what we talked about in the last show, right, Rob? The 49ers somewhat had him in a, you're going to have to show up because if you don't, someone else will be in this role sort of situation. And ultimately for Jennings, right, it comes down to he hasn't gotten that big generational extension yet. And he seemingly put himself on the precipice for it based on how he played last year. And now the only way he's going to get it is by going and having a similar sort of season. And it looks like he's understood that and he's come ready to have that sort of season. By the way, I'd like to add, Rob, I was having a tough week because, Russell Gage immediately got released. And I spent all of last show talking about how Russell Gage could be a guy who contributes. But lo and behold, Russell Gage is back. Russell Gage is listed as a possible starter for week 1. And so, hey. There's a chance that it was Russell Gage, as I said that. No, I'm joking. Jauan Jennings is back because he has an opportunity to hopefully earn the extension that he was looking for this season in this upcoming NFL season.
And he may, we've talked about how the Niners were in an interesting spot with Jennings because if he plays well, great, but when the guys get healthy again, his role sort of diminishes. Well, now if you're Jauan Jennings, let's say you go out, right? And if you have like 100-yard game, I know he only has one in his entire career, but if you go out and you have a 100-yard game or close to it, and in one of these like first 3 weeks where you're getting like elevated targets, and then later in the season when guys come back, maybe your numbers dip a little bit. When you hit the free agent market after the year, you could be like, look, when I was getting the targets, I was producing. Like, you only need to have a couple of big games, and I still think he'd end up getting a decent contract next year.
Not to mention, I think if he's back and he's healthy, somebody like Russell Gage isn't going to beat out Jauan Jennings at this point. Jauan Jennings has more momentum in his career. He's also got a couple more physical gifts in terms of his size and the way he separates compared to a lot of these guys. But if you let Russell Gage get 4 games of momentum in this offense and the 49ers are like, well, he kind of does everything we need him to do. He's kind of getting comfortable and we're kind of getting comfortable with him. That's where now all of a sudden Jauan Jennings, who thought he was coming back to at least grabbing his role from last year, to have, like you said, an opportunity to get a couple big games to prove that he's still that sort of guy to get the contract next year, it completely goes away and he gets re-envisioned how he was looked at his first 3 years of his career. Right now, there's a different look at Jauan Jennings because he showed that additional dimension last year by being at times a number 1 wide receiver and succeeding at it. And so that's the thing. And the fact that he came back shows that I think that ultimately he hoped the 49ers would fold, but he kind of knew the writing on the wall for himself.
And he's back. Now the question becomes, he hasn't done football in 5 weeks, Vish. Can the 3 practices that the Niners are going to have this week be enough to get Jauan Jennings back into football shape where he could actually contribute in a meaningful way against the Seahawks? I don't know.
Oh, sorry, Rob. You completely kind of spooked out for me there.
Yeah, something's going on with my internet, and I apologize for that. Is Jauan Jennings going to have enough time to get back into football shape after 5 weeks off?
Well, The goal is that he's been putting himself in some level of football rigor through the year. But the problem is, Rob, as you said, once you fall behind with this coach, even if you are a superstar player, it kind of ruins your NFL season. So it's $1 million question for a guy like Jauan Jennings, especially after he's pissed them off, allegedly. Tim Kawakami was talking about how Jauan Jennings is asking for like $20 million. And so the 49ers are a little upset because, like we talked about on the show last year, they certainly didn't want to have this drama this year after they've had it the last couple of seasons. And without disrespecting Jauan Jennings, they certainly didn't want to have this drama with Jauan Jennings.
And hopefully it's over now, right? Like, he wanted the contract. He's not going to get the contract. That seems to be pretty clear. Hopefully now it's just about the football. And that's what the 49ers have tried to make this entire offseason about, from signing Brock Purdy and signing George Kittle and signing Fred Warner early when they did. They wanted it to be full steam ahead. We've got to put every ounce of our focus into winning games each week because we're not as good as we used to be. And they didn't get that. And that's part of the reason they were mad at Jauan. But now it's here. It's September 1st, Fish, and it's here.
Yeah, the season's here, Rob. Come on. Let's go. It's week 1.
Yes, I love it. And by the way, not just Jauan Jennings back at practice today. That would be good enough news. Dominick Puni back at practice today. Yetur Gross-Matos back at practice today. Kalia Davis, an important part of their defensive line, back at practice today. Upton Stout back at practice today. In fact, Vish, I cannot believe that I'm going to say this on September 1st. There is one player on the 53-man roster that did not practice today for the 49ers, and that's Jordan Watkins, who should be back relatively soon. If I had told you a month ago that on September 1st, the first practice of the first real game week, 52 out of 53 guys were going to be practicing for the 49ers, you never would have believed me.
I might have believed you, man. No, I'm kidding. I totally wouldn't have believed you. This offseason was brutal for the 49ers. All of these knick-knack lingering injuries. It felt like half the team wasn't even available to practice this offseason, let alone find out who's good and who's bad. And so it's really nice that they're rearing into health and form. But also, seeing this roster come together, you are realizing how important this year, as in any other year in an NFL season, injuries are going to play a big part. Feels like a generic statement, but for this team, it feels excessive given, they have a lack of depth at their interior defensive line. They have a lack of depth in their offensive line. These are key positions that if the 49ers stay healthy at these positions, to me, they're a 10 to 11 win team. If they don't, it could become ugly this season for them very quickly.
I don't know at this point what to expect with injuries. Like, the fact that so many of these guys are back is so exciting. And like, my part of my brain, or maybe my heart, I should say, is starting to think like maybe this will be the year where they won't have a freaking hospital wing full of injuries. Maybe, just maybe this will be the year. My brain is like, shut up, idiot. Don't even think it. So, if that happens, they have the top end talent to compete with anybody. But there's no way to know. And we just got to go through it and keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, I will say, I think projecting the NFL season for me has become very different in this parts of the year, Rob, because I feel like September has become its own new animal. Ever since they've had the 17-game season, ever since there's been this modern approach to not playing any snaps in preseason, it feels like September is this completely disjointed month where a couple offenses start clicking that, seriously don't end up clicking for the rest of the year. Like, remember, Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints were clicking on offense in September last year. They were putting, points up on Dallas's defense, and we thought Dallas's defense was good last year based on the year before, all of these different things. And then you have defenses in September. Everybody's on top of it. Everybody's ready, all of these sorts of things. So to your point, I don't know that we'll even be able to get a good idea of what's going on, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the season, because oftentimes I feel like the first 4 weeks of the NFL season have turned into preseason, which I don't always enjoy, Rob, because I think September is a complete ruse in terms of, this offense looked really good in September. They sucked the end of the rest of the year. This team was really healthy in September. It didn't work out for them once these teams got these players back. And Everybody, by the way, speaking of health, seems to lose 5 players in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I'll never forget the comment from Chris Forrester from a couple years ago, where he said the most tired NFL players ever are throughout the whole season is after the first drive in the first regular season game, because it's, regardless of training camp or preseason, it's the first time where you are full go, pedal to the metal as hard as you can every single snap. And you haven't done that at any point in the preseason. You haven't done it since the end of the previous season. So when those guys come back to the sideline after their first drive, they are absolutely gassed because they're putting their bodies through something that they haven't done in months. And then they're just not used to it yet to that point. So that's when you're fatigued and stuff, that's potentially when these injuries can pop up.
And contact sports are different, right? Because like, you take soccer, for example, you're practicing in certain times in soccer at the same intensity that you're going to play in a game. Football and these contact sports are the one thing where your practice speed is almost 100%, but you're also laying off because you're not playing the same way you would play in the game. And that's the adjustment period that you're discussing, because all of a sudden you get into the game and your lungs are starting to burn a little bit because you're feeling, the crowd after you, the adrenaline's up, and you haven't pushed go on the accelerator like that without like any sort of caution, without like any sort of second thought, without any sort of safety, protect yourself since the last season. And that for your body can be quite a bit, even especially when you're talking about, these Ferrari engines that most of the NFL players have. It's quite intensive to get to September. And I hate that comment too, Rob, because I think he was also specifically talking about the offensive line. And for the 49ers offensive line, it's such an ask with how much movement they ask of those guys. And earlier in the season, how many runs in a row do you think they've stacked up? And now you have a 14-play drive week 1, and you're running the crap out of it is 1 run, 2 runs like in a row. And then you got to go play pass off of it. All of these sorts of things. Very, very, very tiring for those guys. Very tiring. And
then you score the touchdown after 14 plays and the defense forces a fumble on the kick return. And then the offense has to go back out onto the field. Like it can snowball.
Usually, Rob, that's a classic 49ers start. They go up 17-0. We're all feeling good. The first quarter is great. Comes 17-10 by halftime. And the next thing you know, you're in a 20-20 dogfight in the fourth quarter. We've seen that game.
Yeah, I've seen that game enough, man. I don't need to see that game anymore. Nick E, shout out to Nick, YouTube channel member, and all our YouTube channel members, says, maybe it's just me, but I don't think we're going to be as bad as everyone thinks. I feel like with the 49ers, nobody's predicting them to go 9-8. I feel like it's either 6-11 again or 11-6 back to the playoffs.
Well, because it feels like Shanahan's seasons end that way.
True.
A lot of their seasons, it feels like, it's going down and it just goes down. Even though they might be able to level off and finish 9-8. I still stand by it last year. With everything that went wrong, they should have been better than what they finished. No doubt about it in my head. There were so many games that when we walked away from the game on the Monday and we isolated from anything else that was going on the season and we just talked about the game on Monday, we were like, how did they lose? They gave that away. They did all of these things to lose. And so that seems to be a Shanahan thing. I will say, speaking of that, Rob, with such a young team, what I would like to see from the 49ers this year more than anything, like if we want to go for themes of the season, things we're looking for, I want to see them not beat themselves this year. And I know that's kind of a generic statement, like every team beats themselves. I'm talking about I want to see a team that has 7 all-pro players who are veterans, and they play kind of with the game management maturity of that. And I'm putting a lot of that on the coach, because I've always thought Kyle Shanahan is a great coach, highest potential of most coaches in the NFL. I want to see an improvement in his game management, particularly this year, because I feel like that's an area where we've come up and down in waves, and we got a little emotional with his game management the last 2 years. And I would like to go back a little logical, and maybe we learned something from the last 2 years. I know I veered us off course. I took a detour. I pulled off an exit of maybe where you thought we were going to go. But once this topic opened up, that's what I think. What do you think?
No, I like it. I'm down. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Because look, so for anyone, if you're checking us out for the first time, thank you. This show we usually call under review, and what we do is there's a fly in my studio, and it's driving me insane. Sorry. What we do is we go drive by drive and we break down the game. And there were so many games last year where it would be they're in a situation. Kyle Shanahan either attempts a field goal, doesn't go for it on fourth down, punts the ball when he shouldn't punt the ball, uses a weird timeout. There were so many game management questions and criticisms that we had. It's the easiest thing in the world for him to change. I don't know that he's going to, that it all of a sudden in year 9 as a head coach, he's going to have an epiphany. Maybe Robert Saleh can get in his ear. I don't know. But I agree with you, Vish. I'd love to see it because this team is going to be in close games all year long. And in close games, those decisions become 10 times more important. Kyle has to choose the right decision in those game situations. And too many times last year and in previous years, he didn't.
And I'm going to even take that a step further, Rob, to one you like. You know what I don't want to see? I have a scenario I'm imagining in my head right now. And this is a game management scenario. We've talked about the kicker enough, right? We do it at every show, probably more than any other kicker. I don't want to talk about the kicker, but one thing I want to mention with the kicker is I'm going to be very disappointed as a fan just watching the game if the first drive, the 49ers have a pretty good drive, obviously a heavy dose of Christian McCaffrey. Maybe they go 6 plays, like 60 yards, and Christian McCaffrey has, 2 catches and 3 runs, and they go down the field. If they stall, which one momentum driving play, whatever, can make them stall, there's any opportunity where that fourth down is 4th and short, and they're in kind of a middle range. It's not a close field goal. It's a 48 to 55-yard field goal. I don't want to see them trot out the kicker. And that's because of how the kicker has been this offseason and how he was last offseason. I want to see a different tone to this team where, we're going to go for it this time. We had kind of a stalling drive, but we're not going to set the theme of, okay, anytime our offense stalls, we expect our kicker to be Robbie Gould. Well, then you shouldn't be in this goddamn situation with this goddamn kicker. Now that you are in this situation, manage the game like he's Jake Moody, not like he's Robbie Gould. Don't trot him out there every chance you can get, especially in that medium range, because they do it all the time. They get into a 4th and short in that medium range, and they go straight to making him kick a 50-yard field goal, a 48-yard field goal, 49. NFL kickers should make that kick. Well, your kicker doesn't. So make the decision based on who's kicking for you, not whether NFL kickers should be making that kick. That's kind of a side rant. But I'm remembering everything I was passionate about yesterday, Rob, and last year, excuse me. And it's all coming out right now. I better not see it next year.
I love this comment from Shannon Johns. Every single one of us is going to cringe every time he kicks. How could we not? I agree with you completely, Shannon. And here's the thing, Vish. Multiple things I want to say about that. First of all, I agree with what you said. Don't put Jake Moody in a position where he can cost you games, right? Especially early in the year. Let Jake Moody start with a couple of extra points, which I know he missed one in the preseason, but if you look at Jake Moody's career, he's actually been very good at extra points. Like, that is not where he has struggled. Let him get a couple of easy kicks in to boost up his confidence, and then maybe you can, get the train moving down the tracks a little bit. I don't want to see a 45-yard, 50-yard field goal. If it's 4th and 5 or less, I want to see you should go for it regardless of your kicker, but especially with this kicker. I would agree with you. Leave the game in the balance of your best units. And we all know the 49ers' best unit is in special teams. And we all know it's probably not going to be defense early on in the season. Most of the all-pros are on your offense. Let those guys decide the game for you. Let the $265 million quarterback decide the game for you, not Jake Moody.
Agreed. And I'm not advocating not kicking at any point. Are you receiving any feedback?
No.
Oh, I got an echo. Both of us.
Oh man, we got some technical issues on today's show.
Yeah. Let me move back in.
All right. Vish is going to leave and come back. Sorry about the technical issues. We got a couple things going on in my studio today, so apologize for that. Yeah, people are saying that there's an echo. Vish is echoing. Yeah, well, he's going to hop in and hop out. Sorry about that, everybody. But I think it's the AirPods too, MC. I agree with you. Vish,
Hey,
is the echo better?
yeah, the echo is fine, but you are cutting in and out for me now.
Boy, this is a festival on today's show.
It is. We are working on Labor Day, Rob. Come on, we're giving the people something.
That is true. All right. Well, before we continue conversation, let's take a second here because I want to give a shout out to Sleeper, which Eagle Eye viewers will see the little Sleeper logo in the corner of my screen. We are so excited to be able to have Sleeper as a sponsor this year on the pod. They've come on for the first time. We're incredibly grateful that they're willing to hop on with us. We haven't had a ton of sponsors on the pod, so thank you, Sleeper. We will reward your faith. And if you're looking to make some moolah this season, perhaps you can do it with Sleeper. You can use our code, which is GSP. There's a link in the description of the video. You get 100% deposit match up to $100 by using our promo code. Again, GSP. And it's super easy. I got my phone up. You can see it on the screen right now. I'm literally going to do this so everybody can see. It's fantastically easy. Just go to picks right there on the bottom. There you can see it changes. And you could go season-long picks if you want to go for the whole season, bet. You take Ricky Pearsall. You could go individual game. Whatever you want to do, it's all right there for you. You see the menus at the top. You make your selections there. A lot of people are high on Brian Thomas this year. I don't know. I'm skeptical of Trevor Lawrence. So I don't know about you, Vish. But you can go to passing touchdowns. There's all the different categories there. You can go game by game if you want, whatever you want to do. You can go right to NFL. I'll scroll down. It's a stupid fly in the studio. It's driving me nuts. You can go right to San Francisco, Seattle, and they have all the different categories right there for you. Like Christian McCaffrey, anytime touchdown is at 0.5. He's going to go more than 0.5 touchdowns. You think Christian McCaffrey, who hasn't scored all of last year, Vish, he better get a touchdown against Seattle.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Seattle's defense to be the 2013 Legion of Boom. So
absolutely not. So if that's one you like, you just click right on it. Christian McCaffrey. You could even, if you click his name like I just did, you can see there's additional options for you if you want to go 2 anytime touchdowns or 3, depending how strong you feel on it. But you just pick more or less. And one that I have to take. Let me just go right over to interceptions. Let me go to Sam Darnold, 0.5. Yeah, more. I'll take more than 0.5 interceptions for Sam Darnold in every game he plays this year. You click on view entry and you can submit your entry, and it's just that easy. So thank you again to Sleeper. We really appreciate it. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I really like Sam Darnold's interceptions as a higher in this particular matchup too. Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan specifically do very well when they have to scheme up against somebody that's taken Kyle's offense and essentially gone somewhere else. Specifically the ones that worked under him in San Francisco, from the 2 Kubiak brothers, Mike McDaniel, Bobby Slowick, these sorts of guys. And one of the, lo and behold, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks is one of the Kubiak brothers. I think they're going to eat this run game alive. Like Robert Saleh is going to be like, this is going to be scheming to the run game. And Diamond Lenore plays Jackson Smith and Jigba very, very well every time they match up. It's one of the things that never gets talked about with this team. And they played them well with Geno. Now, I think Geno's lack of athleticism was definitely something that affected this matchup in the past, but I don't think Darnold's to be as big or as strong and make as many powerful throws with his arm the way Geno did in this matchup too. Maybe Sam Darnold's a totally different player based on last year, but if Sam Darnold still has some of Sam Darnold's traits that made him struggle for the first 5 years in the NFL, this is a nightmare matchup for him.
So pick more or less from the predicted stats, and you can win up to 100 times your money if your picks win. Use promo code GSP, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. I love everything you said there, Vish. I think that Saleh's defense is going to be so much different than what opponents saw from the 49ers last year. It's going to be challenging and, dare I say, complex, as opposed to Nick Sorensen and his milquetoast defense that we got to see last year.
Well, even at times in their milquetoast defense, Rob, like when they had a healthy Bosa, they had their corners healthy and all of that, and they played an offense that they knew what the offense was giving them. They were a tough defense at times, even last year at their worst. Saleh's going to have them so prepared for everything the Seahawks offense does. Saleh's going to make sure, number one, they get pressure on Sam Darnold and they affect Sam Darnold. And those two things are going to make such a massive difference in this matchup, let alone the fact that they're going to be so ready for that run game. I think they'll shut it down just based on how they scheme it. Saleh fixed the run game. The 2017 run defense that Robert Saleh fixed simply by implementing their scheme and having a much more sound scheme versus the run was historic, because the 2016 run defense with the 49ers and Jim O'Neill is quite simply the worst run defense in the history of the NFL. And so Robert Saleh did it once with less talent. Robert Saleh will do it again. It's a really good matchup for them. Now, I'm less convinced on what's going to be the 49ers offense versus the Seahawks defense matchup. I'm not the most I guess there's been a lot of positivity to Mike McDonald and a lot of what if Seattle has added towards this. And I don't know if I'm a skeptic because it's the Seahawks or if I'm a skeptic because they actually have something that I'm not as interested in. But I'm not as high on what Seattle, I guess, is doing on that side of the ball as well. I'm not as sure about the matchup, but that was the Darnold cooking them last year was more of a scheme thing and a protection thing. Seattle doesn't have the offensive line talent of Minnesota. They're definitely not going to protect the way Minnesota did on a short week with the 49ers coming off the Jets, traveling cross country for an early start. That was a really, really tough turnaround for the 49ers at that time. And Kevin O'Connell, and is it Clint? Do we have Clint? They have Clay. They're not the same.
Yeah, we have, I don't know what Kubiak we have. I can never keep it straight. We have Clay.
And they have Clint.
Yes. So I don't know who has lesser Kubiak or greater Kubiak or whoever. But if you get pressure on Sam Darnold, for sure, he will be a different quarterback. They could not do that at all against that Minnesota Vikings last year. They never made him uncomfortable. And that's
the big... Sorry, I was just going to say, to me, it's the big difference when we talk about Darnold. Seattle's offensive line was shit last year. I think Geno handled it better than a lot of quarterbacks would have. Minnesota protected as good as anybody last year. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your point, but I think you were going there too. So continue. Sorry.
That's feel free. Chris Waddell, thank you so much for the super chat. Chris says, happy football season beginning. Happy Labor Day, boys. Couldn't believe you make Vish work on the holiday. How dare you? Ha, kidding. Let's go 49ers. Hey, did I or did I not check in with you yesterday and say, hey, are you good for the show? And you were like, let's do it.
How do I need to answer this for HR, Rob? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, totally. I how can we miss today though? Come on. The NFL season is starting, Chris. Let's go.
Right. Filthy Casual asks a good question. As good as Saleh is concerned about the rookie starters on defense, which rookies actually start against Seattle? It's an interesting question. I have to assume Michael Williams is going to start, right? Is that a crazy assumption? 11th overall pick. I know he's been banged up, but he's been practicing now. There's no reason why he shouldn't start. I think that's one. I think that Upton Stout, I'm going to make him a starter because I think he's their nickelback. And to me, your nickelback is essentially a starter. So I think he's going to go. Does CJ West start? I don't know. Probably not. I know Matt Maiocco was talking about, hey, you wouldn't be surprised if Nick Martin was starting next to Fred Warner. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think D Winters has that spot there. So I think it's going to be.
I'd love them to start Nick Martin.
You would?
I think that guy is all potential, and the way he got better during the preseason was so promising that I would like to just have him go make his mistakes next to Warner this year and feel good about where that might take his trajectory. Now, that's why I'm sitting here only giving my opinion from the living room of my couch and we're talking about it, but that's just my take. I feel like when you're talking about a player this young, sure, Winters might be assignment sound, at this point more than Martin, but Martin goes at a gear and a speed and with a violence that Winters doesn't have. And that's potential where, to me, if Martin gets 10 games under his belt next to Warner, and I'm being highly optimistic of this,
Yes, you are.
I feel like he's gonna start having things slow down for him. He's gonna have like we've played this scheme. We've now defended an outside zone run where the guard goes this way 7 times. I know exactly what my trigger is to go, make the tackle in the C gap, and I'm just gonna go. And when he goes, there's not a lot of people. He goes like Dre Greenlaw. He goes like Azeez Al-Shaair. He goes with speed and violence that's a little bit different. And the 49ers haven't had that speed and violence when Greenlaw has been unavailable, and that was an issue for them last year. And so that's why I'd love for them to just rip the Band-Aid off and live with Martin's mistakes. I don't think they'll do that. There's too much on the line. But I think there's a gear to Martin that you're never going to get out of Winters. And the 49ers need that in their defense because Warner doesn't bring that either, which is that like just unlimited violence and unlimited explosiveness.
This is a good question from Law of Awe. Who are the starting front four other than Huff and Bosa? I mean, I think it's going to be
Kalia
Bosa,
Davis,
Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, and Huff will probably be on the outside. Was that reasonable? And then you have CJ West and Alfred Collins in sort of the second unit.
I totally agree. I think Davis is and Jordan Elliott. Ideally, you have Collins become the starter at some point, and he develops into that. And they're optimistic about the growth Collins has made from when they were negative about him in the early parts of camp to where he's gotten now. Robert Saleh was very effusive praising him.
Yes,
but those are the two guys that are going to give you the best shot against the run on early downs. Elliott was there to be a big gap stuffer. He's the nose tackle ish. And then, of course, I think it'll be Bosa and Williams. I don't think Huff is here to be an early down player. Huff is here to rush the passer. Huff, CJ West, they'll be a unit together.
Oh, I left off Michael Williams. Jeez, sorry about that.
He's here to play the run.
Yes, first. He is. One sportsman says, I don't think we can afford for Nick Martin to be making mistakes early. I think we need to rotate him. That's the question. He's going to make mistakes. How much can you tolerate? And do the additional things that he could potentially provide counteract those mistakes or make up for those mistakes? And I have no idea how to even begin to answer that question.
Well, Rob, this is where this brings up a roster construction question because the 49ers have put themselves in this situation. You wouldn't have to wait on Nick Martin this year if you ripped the Band-Aid off last year and went with whatever a Nick Martin type. Instead, you put Devondre Campbell on the field. He quit on your team. That was the mistake in roster construction, going and getting a 30-something-year-old and trying to play him next to your all-pro and seeing if it would work out because your other linebacker got hurt. And so that's the pickle this year. I think you're better off. I think these guys develop faster on defense, especially in this defense, than you think. The young guys at the Jets for Robert Saleh, they develop fast. The 49ers, outside of their pass rush, because they went and signed Cassius Martian, et cetera, and thought that was going to make a difference in 2018, they had tremendous amount of development and all the guys that got to play a lot. Fred Warner wasn't Fred Warner day one in 2018. Right. Fred Warner showed a lot of potential, but part of what made Fred Warner so good so fast was the responsibility of having to play on a crap defense for 10 weeks with everybody getting hurt and Reuben Foster going through that whole transitional period of eventually getting cut. And so that's where I feel like you've got to go through it with your roster. The Rams defense, even with Kobe Turner and Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, these guys, it took them a few weeks to get it going. But if they show talent, you might have a chance at them being good really, really fast. And I think the cool thing about the 49ers draft class is there was no shortage of showing talent this offseason or during the preseason. And I would ride with that because that's the future core of your roster. You have to rebuild it. You're not going to get much out of this season if Nick Martin plays 7 games and, you start Fred Warner and D. Winters for the majority of it and Christian McCaffrey gets banged up week 14 and you don't make the playoffs. What was the final thing of this year?
And I honestly, I think in their heart of hearts, they're looking more towards 2026. I really do believe that. I think this year was all about getting rid of the vets, taking your medicine with the cap hit, and going from there. They're not going to say that publicly, but that's what I think their thinking was. So, just keep that in mind. Luis Aguilar says Nick Martin's mistakes are probably more passable than Campbell's entire play. I'm sure he'll be fine. Completely agree with that. Joe, $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, appreciate you gents entertaining us on the holiday. Happy real football in 6 days. Thank you very much, Joe. I like this comment from ASDF JKL. D Winters is going to get hurt anyway, so Nick Martin's going to play, which is probably true if D Winters' injury history is any indication. And finally, Benali says the Niners have rookies they need to develop over time, but they also have a bunch of all-pro vets that actually trying to contend. So I don't know how they can do both, but they're going to try. And I think, as usual, Benali hits the nail on the head. They're back in a two-timeline situation, Vish.
Essentially, of course, it's not as bad when you're dealing it with your roster than when you have to deal with it with your quarterback. Like, it's more done with your roster when you get in a situation where you rebuild a year late, which is what the 49ers are doing with your quarterback. It's never been done before. The 49ers are setting new eras with the way they handled that whole situation. The one question for me is, they have to also win their division games, right? And someone posted in the chat. I just saw that, and it reminded me as well. Having to play early on within the division.
Hate it.
Maybe that's why D Winters plays more. I don't know.
Good
I
point.
go back and forth with this, Rob, because I do see, like, okay, the 49ers vets, all of these sorts of things, but Kittle becomes Kittle because he plays so much on a bad team in 2017. Warner becomes Warner because they play so much on a bad team in 2018. It's not the only thing that makes them, but it's hard to develop in this league if you don't get the opportunity to play when you're young. And if you're expected to be at a certain level before you get on the field, sometimes you might never achieve that in a practice or two. And so part of what I was excited about this year was a lot of young players in the past have had to come into a team that's, 5 deep at a position, and they have to compete for even playing special teams. This team has a lot of space in areas where young players can play, and I hope they turn to them and allow them to play because, again, based on what we've been getting in this limited offseason, Rob, there's a lot of talent on this roster.
Chris Waddell,
From
thank you.
Young player standpoint, sorry.
That's okay. Chris Waddell, $5 super chat. Thank you. Says, crazy. They gave Warner the green dot right away as well. I guess no one else they could trust, but how they've babied rookies is surprising. I remember saying this when Trey Lance was in town. Their whole thing was like, well, we'll use them in spurts, right? That was their initial plan, to have the Trey Lance package. And I remember saying at the time, like, rookie mistakes are going to happen. That's not just a football thing. That's a rookie in any job. When I was working at ESPN Radio, the first time they put me on the control board, one of the first times ever, was on The Herd with Colin Cowherd. And I screwed up so many things. I screwed up his commercials. I had a SportsCenter music bed playing in the middle of a commercial break. Like, that's going to happen, regardless of whether my first shift was my first day on the job at ESPN or a year after I got there. Like, it's inevitable. All you're doing by not playing that player is changing the timing of those mistakes. You will never eliminate them because that's just how human brains work. We try something, we screw up, we learn from our mistake, and then we change things going forward. So I have always been a play the rookies guy. I think that keeping them on the sidelines can help, but it can only help so much.
Totally agree. And ultimately, you're never going to find out whether a guy can truly handle everything that goes into playing and then everything that goes into mentally, because there's a second part of an NFL career, right? One is, do you have the ability cognitively? Now, everybody has the NFL talent physically to make it to the NFL. There's very few guys that they scout wrong in terms of what their physical attributes are. After that, the first question is, do you have the cognitive ability to process everything that goes on in a meeting room, translate it to the football field, and be able to play at the same speed where your physical attributes are? This is where guys with physical attributes slow down because the mental part of the game slows them down. But then second part of it is, do you have the human consistency now that you've proven you can do that 1 week to be able to apply it to your life with the discipline and be able to have that consistent performance week in, week out? You're never going to be able to find that out until you put a guy in that situation, until he has a good game and the media interviews him a couple of times. Now he goes to the club and they recognize him and they're letting him in for free with Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. Do you leave early with those guys and go back and eat the right meals and do all of these sorts of things? You never find that out until the guy's in that situation. And of course, the 49ers coaches know this better than us, but sometimes they have to make decisions not necessarily based on what's best for one football player, but what they think is best for 53 football players. And right now, there's some conflict between what's best for their young football players and what's best for 53 football players because of who their veterans are.
Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo decides to take everybody to Las Vegas for a little trip. Remember that? I think it was Kittle talked about how like velvet ropes opened for them and they got to, and it was like a whole different experience than any other time he went to Vegas. That's a real thing. The human side of this is a real thing. It sounds like, and again, we don't really know anybody on the team, but especially the rookies. So like, who knows if this is true, but everything that we've heard about them is that they have a very kind of football mature group of people. So hopefully they will make those right choices, but this is all stuff that we're going to discover as the season goes along. I can't freaking wait. I'm so excited. And we have football Thursday, Friday, and Sunday this week, and Monday.
I know. It's crazy. And to your point, Rob, they might be made of the right stuff, but will they be made of the right stuff a year from now? Like they're going through the biggest part of their life where they change the most.
True. That's a good point. It's a massive change. Now they go from playing in college to playing at the toughest level they've ever played at to playing
so much money. It's a professional now. They got to do this 24 hours a day. People that weren't getting as good as them in college are not be able to get as good as them in the league because they're going to have the time to put into this, and people are going to put every stinking minute of their life into this. Some people will because they're that mad about it. And some people will do it like a normal job. And some people won't do it at all because they're happy with the check. And so you're going to find out who they really are now in that period, because that's also the age where they have the most freedom, all these sorts of things.
I just saw a podcast clip of Johnny Manziel and somebody, a former teammate, I forget who it was, Braylon Edwards. And they were talking about how
that's interesting.
They would leave Cleveland on Monday and go to Johnny Manziel would go to Texas. He would fly out Monday night, go to Texas on Tuesday, or go to Miami and party all day and, do whatever, and then fly out late Tuesday night back to Cleveland on Wednesday. Like, they didn't know the playbook. They didn't know the play. They were just doing their own thing. Johnny Manziel said he literally could not wait to go just breathe Texas air, especially when he knew he was the backup and Hoyer was the starter. Like, those are real things that happen behind the scenes. Now, that's an extreme case, but it's an example of the choices that these guys have to make.
Was Braylon Edwards doing that too?
He said he would go to not necessarily with Johnny all the time, but same thing. He would leave Cleveland.
Did they play together? Braylon Edwards was on the Jets by like 2008.
I don't know. He's on the podcast. The caption is Johnny Manziel and Braylon Edwards would leave Cleveland on Monday to go party in Miami during the season. And I watched the clip, and I can't remember I'm pretty sure Braylon said he did too.
Well, if Braylon did that in his career, it makes a lot of sense why his 49ers tenure, he was Andrew Bynum for them with the knee. He was a biscuit. But I think, if I remember correctly, Braylon Edwards was out of the NFL by the time Johnny Manziel rolled around. Manziel rolled around in 14. I think Edwards' career was done by 12 or 13.
Well, maybe he was doing it too.
That's what I'm saying. But hey, Edwards was a talented guy.
Yeah, I remember
Cleveland with the Jets.
Coming out of
Niners. Remember when we thought he was going to do something? He was the big signing of the Harbaugh era, and that biscuit did not play 10 games and got cut. Joe Hastings started games at wide receiver for the 49ers because they had a biscuit that they got in the offseason named Braylon Edwards.
As much as I'd like to keep talking about the Browns, I want to get to this comment from Benali because I talked about this after the news of the Micah Parsons trade. How does this affect Nick Bosa? Benali says maybe Nick Bosa looks at the market for pass rushers and has a career year for a new contract and none of it matters. Bosa's going to want a new deal, Vish, and his cap number jumps up to 40 million next year. This year it's 20 million. Next year it goes up to 40 million. So they're going to be talking to Nick Bosa about a contract situation. And now that Micah Parsons just got $47 million a year from the Packers, what do you think is going to happen with Bosa?
If the first part of what Benali says is true, that he goes and has a huge year, I think he's going to put a lot of pressure on them. And if he has a huge year, like another 20 sack type year or something like that, like he did, or a defensive player of the year type year like he did, I think it would behoove them to try and extend him one more time, reduce the cap number, turn some of those dollars into a signing bonus, and push the problem down the road again with his contract to give them a little bit of room right away now. But if he doesn't, and he has another season like last year, I think they would want to try to keep him at the number he is at right now, because the number he's at right now is still around the top 5, and it's a pretty good number. So it's going to be interesting. But I do think the Parsons number, especially because the pass rushers in the NFL, for me, there's a clear tier with the top 5. And apologies to Trey Hendrickson, he's not there for me. It's Bosa, Crosby, Watt, Parsons, and Garrett. Like, to me, those are the 5 best rushers in football. Maybe Will Anderson joins that conversation this year. Maybe there's a few other guys, but right now I think there's been a definitive, those have been the 5 best rushers in football for a couple years now. And Bosa's fallen behind on the number pretty fast after being the highest by a lot pretty fast. And Parsons did a Bosa with how he reset the market. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Bosa looks to do what Watt did, which is catch up at some point. Bosa looks to do what Garrett did, which is catch up at some point. And both those guys caught up this offseason. Bosa has a huge year. Benali might have nailed it.
She usually does. Also, Trey Hendrickson's going to be a free agent, and he's going to hit the open market. So he's going to get a bag from somebody, and that's going to affect Nick Bosa too, obviously. And remember, Kawakami said that the Niners didn't really like the Bosa contract. So it's like, are they going to be willing to do that again when he's even older? I don't know. I mean, we're skipping ahead here, a year ahead of time, to be fair, but it's just the Parsons thing just happened. So I wanted to discuss it with you.
Right. The NFL has changed. I think 10 years ago, you would never not build around a rusher like Bosa, and you would never even think of trading him. But 10 years ago, you would never trade a Micah Parsons. 10 years ago, like Jalen Ramsey doesn't push himself out in his first contract. You know, like the NFL has totally changed. There's so much money being given out to these players that people are actually, questioning giving out money to these sorts of players. So I'd like to sit here and say that, oh, no doubt next year, if he has a big year, they're just going to sit here and pay him because you build around Nick Bosa. That's the guy you build around for your defense. But you're right. Who knows? Who the frick knows with where the NFL is?
Mike,
that fly is really bothering you, huh?
It's driving me nuts. Mike UA says, as long as Kyle Juszczyk stays healthy, there's no stopping this team, which, hooray. I think we can all agree on that. That's pretty basic. But before we wrap up, Fish, let's get back to Seattle, because next time I talk to you, we're going to have an actual game to break down. A couple of weeks ago or last week, I was saying maybe Kyle just goes 2 tight ends the entire time against the Seahawks, and they only have to put 1 receiver on the field. Now they're actually going to have receivers on the field. What do you think the game plan is going to be against this Mike Macdonald defense?
You're going to see a lot of Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, you are. Ricky's going through the roof. I keep telling everybody, whatever the predictions are from Vegas about Ricky Pearsall, go higher. Go higher. I think he's going to have a monster. I think 1,200 yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns is perfectly reasonable explanation for Ricky Pearsall.
I totally agree. I also think like there's a part of me, and I think maybe football is coming back, and I hate the Seahawks so much. I've been rearing around to be pretty competitive. I just have a sneaking feeling that Kyle's going to have something to give it to Mike Macdonald.
I hope so, because, everyone's talking about, well, remember that Ravens game when Mike Macdonald was the coordinator and Brock threw all those picks and all that, and the Seahawks got a lot of young defensive players. There's a lot of, I feel like, hype for Mike Macdonald and that Seahawks defense this year, and Kyle may want to say, you know what? No. Last year I took it on the Chiefs.
Maybe they live up to the hype, Rob. But when I look at the defenses in this division, I think Arizona to me, is the one that I'm more scared of making the jump, not Seattle. I like the potential of Arizona's defense. I think Arizona rushing the passer is going to be pretty scary this year.
If Calais Campbell can still be good at 37 years old.
That guy is walking into the Hall of Fame, Rob.
He's
That
an
guy is
unbelievable player. Like,
yeah.
ridiculous. First of all, ridiculous human. He's like a massive human being. And to be this productive, this long at that spot is almost unheard of.
I mean, we were talking about him as such a great player back with Darnell Dockett and Adrian Wilson. Like, that was the Arizona Cardinals defense. And then Patrick Peterson for a little bit. He goes to Jacksonville. Great player. And now we're coming back, 8 years after he went to Jacksonville and saying, hey, that's still what a player.
38 years old last year with the Dolphins, and played all 17 games, had 5 sacks, 35 solo tackles, 12 tackles for loss. Dude's just a freaking monster, man. All right. It's that time, Bish. Official
that time, Rob. Next week, though.
Prediction. What do you got?
All right. I'm going to take the Niners. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair. But I think the Niners defense is really going to have something for Seattle's offense. I don't know that every week for the Niners defense is going to look like this early on, but I think this is a tailor-made matchup right away. And Seattle did not fix their offensive line to me this offseason. The Greg Zabel pick was a great pick, or Gray Zabel, but it's not one player that solves the whole issues that they had last year. I know that they're going to be healthier, but offensive lines take a little while to get going. I think the 49ers are going to rush the passer well. I'm going to take them 17-13.
Ooh, low scoring game. Okay. My grading system for the Niners this year is going to be so much lower. Like, we got kind of caught up in that, like 30 points a game every week, right? Like, we should be doing it now. I don't care if they win 2-0. I don't care if they win 50-0. Just find a way. I don't care if they win on a last-second Jake Moody 10-yard field goal that doinked in off both uprights. Like, I'm not going to be picky this year. Survive and advance. That's my only requirement for San Francisco. So if they're scoring 17 points a game, whatever it takes, man, whatever it takes, find a freaking way. This is a division game. I know it's the first week. I don't care. It's critical. The division games are massive this year for the 49ers. Obviously, it's an NFC game as well, which I believe is going to be a big factor for the 49ers this year, whether or not they make the playoffs. So I'm going to give my official score prediction on Friday. I do think I got to do 5 shows.
You just made me put it all on the line right there, and you're doing it on Friday. You give yourself 5 more days to do it, and I'm reading the comments, and I hate the score that I picked. Like, who picked 17-13 in 2025, but I was put on the spot?
Well, hey, I didn't make you pick 17-13. You could have picked any score you wanted. Don't blame me.
I'm blaming you, Rob. This is your fault. You did this to me.
Chris Waddell says, been seeing it a lot, and I like it. Can we run 2 running back sets? Christian McCaffrey as the slot wide receiver with Brian Robinson Jr. as the primary back. I'd love to see that. A lot of people say, yeah, and thank you, Tony, who says Stats owns the network. Just that is true.
Playing that card right away, huh?
I mean, Tony played it for me. I didn't throw it out. I don't, people are like, just put McCaffrey in the slot if our receivers were banged up. Like, I still think Christian McCaffrey is a great running back. I don't want him. Like, you can a couple of plays throw him in the slot. Sure. Like, I'm sure you could whip up some creative stuff, but like, I'm still a 23 in the backfield kind of guy. Let it roll. Brian Robinson's a fine player, but if you're saying who do I want running the ball more, it's Christian McCaffrey over Brian Robinson every time.
Yeah. And look, here's what I want to see with Brian Robinson, because part of the McCaffrey usage, and Mike Davis went on some podcast this year and called him selfish. But part of the McCaffrey usage is McCaffrey himself never, ever allowing anybody else to go on the field. Even if he had a 70-yard run, he wants to take the next snap and run it for 3 yards, and he has the wind to do that. He's that prepared. He wants to do those things. But I think Brian Robinson brings such a different element to their offense, and I love the way he runs and how it lines up with what they do and also balances with McCaffrey's skill set. I would love to see him get a lot of carries. That Sonic and Knuckles sort of duo is the new thing, right? With Jamal Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs, the two backs, one who's got a little more of a bruising style, and then one who's that all around, does everything. I think that sort of balance, especially with how big and physical Brian Robinson and consistent he is running it. I also think Brian Robinson, like I said in the last show, he's just a good runner. He's a starting running back in the NFL, and he's playing on house money for a contract year. I don't want to – I just want to see him get a lot of carries along with Christian McCaffrey. I think the 49ers can be a very good running team this year, especially with the questions on their offensive line. Their offensive line is going to be ready to run block. That's going to be the one thing they're going to be ready to do, especially with Christian McCaffrey. And I'd love to see them balance it out because Christian McCaffrey injury, Rob, is the one thing I'm so scared about this year. It's the one thing I can't even predict. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm praying it's not going to happen, but it doesn't feel, especially with the amount they're about to use him, the amount they need to use him, doesn't feel great to me. And I think Robinson is one of them after Kittle, after Pearsall. Robinson might be the next best weapon on the offense.
I don't know if I'm willing to go that far, but okay. Benali says the Niners never win when they score 17 points under Brock Purdy. That's true. So you just made them lose, or you're picking for history under Brock Purdy. So we'll see.
You know me, I love picking for history. That's why I picked 17-13. Great score in 2009 if you're picking a week 1 game.
Benali also says Niners lose on a last-second missed Jake Moody kick, and they cut him the next Wednesday.
I'd be livid.
That could, but that's what's going to happen, right? That's going to happen.
Rob, if we have to come here and talk about that, I refuse. I will talk about anything else. That's not even a worthy topic. If they lose a game because he misses a kick, especially in September, and then they cut him, I won't talk about it. That should have been done so long ago. What are we going to do? Oh, the Niners had to cut him. They had to get rid of him. We're going to talk about what a good move they made cutting him? No. Bullshit.
Mm-hmm. You're right. It's going to be, why do they need to see this again? Why do they need to have him cost them another game?
Why are they wasting our time making us blame him and talk about him and cut him when, oh God, Rob, that's the other thing. I know I said it earlier in the show. If they put him out there, right, the first thing, it's at the 30-yard line, 4th and 2, Shanahan decides to kick it and he misses a 48-yard field goal right off the bat. If that's how they start their season, I won't say anything about the missed field goal. I'll say everything about Kyle Shanahan. Why do you want to start your season putting it into the shakiest player on your team's hands to score, especially when you have an opportunity? You paid your quarterback $265 million this offseason. I better not see that kicker out there unless you have to kick it.
Why put the game in the hands of the guy on your team that you have the least confidence in, right? If there's any guy in the 49ers where you're like, I have no idea what this player is going to do on the field, it's number 4. It's Jake Moody, period. So
he doesn't know.
Right. He doesn't know. He's like me on the golf course. Once he starts to swing, who knows where it's going? Why would you put any part of the game in his hands? Now, look, if they're, if it's 4th and 25, that's obviously different. But we all know if it's 4th and short, they should not put Jake Moody in a position where he can hurt them. He can't put himself in the game, right? It's not like Jake Moody can just run out on the field real fast and kick a field goal. He can only hurt the 49ers if Kyle Shanahan lets him hurt the 49ers.
No, and Filthy Casual goes straight to the straw man argument. No, nobody says don't kick it on 4th and 10. Of course you kick it on 4th and 10. But if you're in a situation where it's should we kick it, should we not, you don't put the shakiest player on your team to start your season and go, let's all find out. Let's cross our fingers. And if he makes it, we're having a good season. If he doesn't, we have 6 more weeks to win. He's not the freaking groundhog looking for his shadow on Groundhog's Day to tell us if there's more winner or not. You decided to go with him this year. You don't treat him with the confidence of he's Robbie Gould. I kick in this situation, therefore I'm going to kick it, and then I'm going to come to the press conference and blame the kicker I kept if he misses it. That doesn't work like that. We know what he is. You call the game to the kicker you have, not the fact that you believe NFL kickers should make the kick that you're where you are. They didn't coach around their kicker well last year at all. There were so many situations where they would put him out there for a 48-yard field goal off 4th and 1 when he's missed 2 kicks in a game. And
Right.
the field goal, by the way, puts them down 4.
Right. You shouldn't, even if you had Robbie Gould, you shouldn't be kicking a field goal in a lot of these spots. But when you don't, it makes the decision even worse. Benali says Iowa State's kicker made a 63-yarder last week. Maybe Brock can put in a good word. And Mike UA says, how many field goals did Moody make in the season opener last year? I think it was 5. I believe it was 5.
Yeah.
A lot of
it was. It's kept his job.
Didn't do any good, did it? Like, Brant Boyer saying, oh, that 59-yarder against the Raiders in the preseason could change Jake Moody's career. Well, he had a game winner against the Buccaneers.
Fingers on that.
Last year.
Brant Boyer's crossing his fingers like, hey, guys, let's all hope, because I'm fired if he doesn't make these.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, kind of. I forget who said it in the chat, but you're right. Kicker update. We did end the show with a kicker update.
Yeah, sorry. I don't want to talk about him all the time, but I get so passionate about talking about him.
Yeah, because it's just we all can see what's going to happen from a mile away. It reminds me, this is an old movie now, but do you remember in Austin Powers when he's driving the steamroller and there's that security guard and he's like, no, stop. And Austin Powers is at the other end of the room and he's just yelling at the guy, like, move out of the way. And the security guard just stands there with his hand up. And eventually, like 10 minutes later, Austin Powers rolls over him with the steamroller. That's exactly what I feel like is happening with Jake Moody. We all see the steamroller coming. It is there. It's loud. It's big. We all see it. And Kyle Shanahan is standing there looking right at it. And he's like, bring it on, baby.
That's an amazing analogy to end our show. Austin Powers reference. Great set of movies. Way to go, Rob.
There you
Pat
go.
yourself on the back. You didn't settle for a kick to end our show. You were like, screw it. I'm getting the 7 points, baby. And you just pushed your way in.
People are either going to love this or they're going to hate it. But okay, you know what? Mid-season form. We don't just talk it. We back it up. That's what we're doing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If this is your first time checking us out, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. I promise you will like what you see. Give us a chance to cover the 49ers for you this season, and we will hopefully make you a better, smarter fan. Vish, next time we talk, we are breaking down Seattle Seahawks, San Francisco 49ers football.
Hell yeah. And Rob, I'll leave you with, I think Seattle's going to be the worst team in the division this year. I don't know why people are so high on them. I wasn't as impressed with their machine like preseason. Who cares about the preseason? And so I'm leaving myself open to eat a lot of crow on Monday, but I don't think I'm going to be. I think I'm going to be eating a lot of Seahawk.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. We'll talk to you next week.